You're listening to Switched On Australia, the podcast that tracks the opportunities and challenges of electrifying everything, everywhere. Switched On is brought to you by the publishers of Renew Economy, Australia's best informed, most read website focusing on the green energy transition, and is supported by Boundless Earth. Boundless Earth uses philanthropy, investment and direct advocacy to help Australia become a global force in a decarbonised world. Hello and welcome back to Switched On Australia, the podcast where we meet the people and explore the ideas powering the shift to cleaner, smarter energy in homes and communities across the country. I'm Anne Delaney, coming to you from the lands of the Arakwal people of the Bundjalung Nation. Thanks for joining me. When it comes to making big changes, like upgrading your home to be more energy efficient or going all electric, it turns out one of the most powerful motivators isn't advertising, policy or even rebates. It's a conversation. Time and again, research shows we're more likely to take action when we hear about it from someone we trust, a neighbour, a friend, a relative, not necessarily from the energy industry, which, let's be honest, doesn't always score highly on the trust scale. But with over 11 million homes in Australia needing some kind of energy upgrade, how do you spark millions of those personal conversations? One answer: go local. Across the country, councils and community groups are stepping into this space, connecting with people where they live, speak their language and understand their unique needs. Today, we head to Melbourne's inner and outer north, to the diverse and vibrant local government area of Merri-bek. Merri-bek Council has become a leader in grassroots energy transition, taking a hands-on, human-centred approach to helping residents electrify their homes and cut emissions. It's a great example of what's possible when local government meets the community where they're at, literally. One way Merri-bek is doing this is by employing community outreach workers, people who are deeply embedded in the local community and can help bridge the gap between ambition and action. We'll hear from one of them shortly, but first I caught up with Donna Luckman, the Zero Carbon Campaigns lead at Merri-bek City Council, to learn more about how the council is supporting its community through the energy transition. And I began by asking Donna to tell me more about the Merri-bek community.
Yeah, so Merri-bek City Council, so we're a local government area that starts out from like the inner north to the outer north of Melbourne. So it stretches quite far back and it's quite a diverse community in many ways. We have over about 180 languages spoken within Merri-bek. I think about 40% of our residents speak a language other than English at home. And then also we just have a really broad spread of people across maybe a bit further in the south of our area. It's quite gentrified. There's a lot of more infill and apartments going in. While further in the north of the Merri-bek area, we've got a lot of more standalone older houses post-war. So it's quite diverse in its people and its building types as well.
So I know that you've done some surveys of your community to find out what they think about electrification and energy upgrades and what they even know about the appliances that they use in their home. What did you learn from those surveys?
Yeah, so about 4 years ago, when we started wanting to do a bit more communications and engagement work with our community about energy upgrades and electrification, we did a series of focus groups. And just to even find out, do people even know about, the benefits of electrification and, the environmental as well as the bill savings that can come from it.
Mm.
For us, it was actually quite eye-opening because, once again, sometimes we can be in our own little bubble when we work in sustainability. But for a lot of people, they just had no idea, which of their appliances run on gas and which run on electricity. There's still not much of a understanding that, gas being a fossil fuel was always, our residents always thought that, gas is much better than using electricity because of, from an environmental perspective, because it's not burning coal. So people out there in our community probably didn't have that much understanding of like the benefits and environmental benefits of electrification.
So, I mean, clearly there are some barriers for people in the community following through with energy upgrades when it comes to knowledge? What other barriers are there for your particular communities?
I think it's like for communities across Australia, and it's always talk about, for most people, it's the three questions. It's what do I need to do? Who's going to do it for me? And how much is it going to cost?
Mm.
So we have a lot of barriers. Like, one, we try to address it like, what do I need to do? So we run a lot of communications campaigns on the benefits of electrification. We have posters up all around our area. We run events with different sustainability experts can talk about electrification. We've also developed a two-page Go Electric plan. So people can have a like, go around their house, list how old some of their appliances are, like their hot water or yeah, their heating, when it might be able to replace. And also then having a whole lot of information there and tips and tricks on what people can actually do. So we sort of have that type of thing to do the what do I need to do? Who to do it for me? We're very lucky here in Victoria. We have a series of what are called greenhouse alliances. So these are groups of councils across Melbourne working within different regions. And through the greenhouse alliances, we've got a thing called the Solar Savers program. And the Solar Savers program actually goes through a procurement process on behalf of about 27 councils to come along across, preferred suppliers for different aspects of like solar or hot water heat pumps or insulation. So we're able to provide support for our community by saying, look, we've gone through a procurement process. Here's some vetted suppliers that you might want to be able to go through.
What energy upgrades is Marybeck offering?
Yeah, so at the moment, we can offer the full suite to people who are wanting to do an upgrade. So it might be insulation, it might be hot water heat pumps, reverse cycle, solar as well. So they're the ones that we offer at the moment. For our low income subsidy program, it is just for solar and insulation draft proofing at the moment and a little bit of reverse cycle too. So, but we're looking to review that program and hopefully see that we can actually do a bit more of a targeted approach with people low income households. So we can go in and do the assessment first and make it a bit of a decision about what's the best upgrade they actually need for their home.
And how much is finance an issue for people in your community? The inability to actually afford some of the upgrades.
Yeah, finance is a big issue. So we have people taking up the 2,000 insulation and draft proofing offer just because they know they won't have any out of pocket expenses. So we will package up what gets done to their home to that 2,000 mark. So because for a lot of people, they can't do any co-contributions to actually get these spins installed.
And so where's the money coming from for that program?
So the money comes from councils themselves. So we all pay a service fee to Solar Savers for doing this work for us. So the council are actually paying for that. In addition, here at Merribeck City Council, we're also doing another program which is really just targeting low income households. Once again, this is a program that council pays for, in which we sort of go around targeting members of our community who we know are on a low income, but also we sort of do a little bit of mapping as well of finding which parts of our community are vulnerable to heat and other impacts of climate. So we can then go through our rates data, find people who are claiming a pension or a discount on their rates. We overlay that with the different areas that people are experiencing vulnerability to heat and other climate impacts. We then actually send them through a targeted one-page letter from our mayor saying, hey, did you know that at council we can support you with either like a $2,000 upgrades for insulation or draft proofing or $3,000 for solar. So we actually give that subsidy to people, and then we have a staff officer who offers a concierge service to those people to help them take through that whole journey of actually thinking about it to actually installing in their own homes. So that might include like helping apply for state government rebates and us liaising with the installers just to smooth that process for people.
What's the uptake after the mayor sends out a letter? Or how effective is the mayor's letter to households about the energy upgrades?
The mayor really swings it for people. We have about a about a 40% uptake from people, and I think it just really
40%?
yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah, and I think it just really reminds people that, just getting a one-page letter and something that's, personalized to you makes such more of an impact than a whole lot of other comms, like, seeing something maybe on social media or other things as well. So we know especially for this cohort, like the good old, paper delivered into your mailbox is the really good response rate, and I think why it's so successful and why the mayor gets so much credibility is just that trust. So,
Yeah.
people trust council, they know council, so I think it's much easier for them to actually think about it and go to the next step.
I mean, that's such an interesting point because what you're raising is it's the personal contact that is actually helping people take action. We can inform people on websites through podcasts, etc. But it's the actual change in behaviour that is the crucial thing, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And having, the person that can sort of hold people's hand through this process who might not thought about it before is just really crucial. And I think, it's the personal delivery that we can do. And I always love it. We call our bit of our influencer is Maria. She's, a pensioner living in her home in Pascoe Vale here in Marybeck. And she just even talked about when she had the installation, people, installers come through, how she loved them so much, she thought they're like her brothers. So, you can't get more, you need to keep on having that trust and credibility within our community. And Maria has like, flipped a whole lot of people that she knows to come and get the subsidies. So
Mm.
for us, we're always capturing the personal stories as well of, people who have like Maria who have actually benefited from these upgrades. And we do videos and also, photos, and they're like people that look like you in your homes is what is actually flipping other people in our community to actually come towards us and wanting to get these upgrades done as well.
So do you think that is the biggest strengths that local councils can bring to the table when it comes to engaging communities and in home energy upgrades? Are they the best placed agencies to be doing this because they're so much on the ground than any other agency?
Absolutely, and I think local government and community groups are just so perfectly placed because we have that connection with our community and we do have that trust with our community. And I think especially for cohorts that like who might not be online or who might not have the access to finances at the moment to do some of these upgrades. So for what we see, and we've been doing quite a bit of work as well with the state government here in Victoria with the SEC and doing some of their pilots with the one-stop shop that they've been trialing
Mm.
with too. So we can see that there's real benefit for the role of state government agencies to help fulfill some of those people who might have the finances, they know what they do and they're ready to go. And then we can partner with the state government programs that actually then let's help deliver to the local people who you might not be reaching like through the online platforms. So that's the real strength of local government. But we also need the federal government to step in as well. So, we're fortunate here at Marybeck Council that we're putting some money into this subsidy program, but most councils can't afford it. So to actually be able to reach the people who probably needs these upgrades the most, we see that we need all the three tiers of government actually working together so we can actually get to a diverse range of cohorts in our community.
And do you think that the potential of the local council role is being fully utilised in upgrading our homes for the energy transition? Is there still a long way to go before people see local councils as a really integral force?
I think some people in our community do, and also it's not just even doing upgrades. So local councils do other things like you can actually hire like an induction cooktop from your library, just so people can get an idea what cooking with an induction could be, or what we're seeing at the moment, lots of people are borrowing our thermal cameras as we go through the cold Melbourne winter. So
Right.
everyone's borrowing the thermal cameras that you can get from the libraries. Like we've got about 8 in circulation and there's a waiting list of about 25 people at the moment. So, people use these thermal cameras to try and find the gaps within their homes and trying to stop drafts. So I feel like in our community, they know that there is, local governments are playing a really important role. I think though what is actually missing for all the 3 tiers of government working together on how we can actually really reach out to our community and, be able to do it in the just using the strengths of all those 3 different layers. I feel like there's still a bit more work that we need to do there.
So, what else does, say, Marybeck Council need to be even more effective, for instance?
I think what we actually need at the moment to be more effective is, once again, the funding to actually do more subsidies. So, we're quite restrained in here in Victoria on local council income because of the rate cap. So, we do have budget constraints. So it's difficult for us to keep on being able to offer these subsidies for people on the low income. So that would actually be what we need. I think also then just having a bit more of that coordinated effort. So, as I said, we're a member of Solar Savers, where we have all these different suppliers that we can actually use to roll out of our programs. But we need to be able to do that throughout all the different regions and making sure that we've got local installers in different regional areas as well. So other local councils can do that too. So
Mm.
I think it's just, yeah, once again, that having that money for the subsidies for low income people is really what we need at the moment because there's not really any state or federal government program that can offer that at the moment, especially in like the private housing sector.
Do you think that the state and federal pollies are listening to local councils in this regard?
I think they are starting to listen, so hopefully they're listening to this, Anne. So yeah, so, and I think that's a bit, for our role, just keep on showing that this is the impact that we're having in communities. Like, keep on profiling all the people who have actually benefit from these different government programs and saying, look, working together, we can just maximize our impact so much better than the federal government trying to, do programs by itself and reaching people. We just know that local government's just in a better place position to be able to do that.
I think you mentioned Maria, who do you call her a local energy influencer?
100% we do, and I think she knows about it too. So, like, I think, she knows that she's got quite a high profile and that we've been showing her around in other places as well. So, and she's very proud of that too. So, and as I said, like, she's actually helped other people in her community get excited about it and go ahead and do some of these energy upgrades as well.
But you're also using, I suppose, what you'd call peer educators. People from the community who you train up and who go back into the community to talk about energy upgrades. And I know Maria's doing that, but tell me why you've used that strategy.
Because, like, quite a few years ago when we were developing up our program on doing, education on energy upgrades and electrification, we did the focus groups that I mentioned, but we also then did a lot of research on, what's the best practice in behavior change communications. And we're really influenced by some think tanks like Climate Outreach, who are based over in the UK and do lots of great research in communications on climate change. And just how they kept on, what they talk about is that, people aren't actually influenced by a whole lot of facts and figures and make really, rational cost benefit ratio decisions on what they do in their homes. People are more influenced on, on their values, on what they see around them, and like, what are their neighbors doing and what their friends and family are doing. So a lot, we're driven by that research. So we do a lot of our comms is more actually putting up people in the community who are actually doing it and get them to tell their stories. So, even when we did the focus groups, like when we even talked about cost benefit savings, people going to all electric homes, they couldn't grasp it because it was like comparing, apples with oranges, but and also they didn't actually trust people even when we had something like even from the AGL website saying, it's much better for people to, not use gas ducted heating, but actually go into reverse cycle. So there was a real trust barrier there. But if you've got someone, from your local community saying, "Hey, I've done this, I've now got these bill savings," people are going to believe them.
Yes.
So we make sure that we always have lots of local people talking about their experiences because people are going to be more trusting of people within their community and their neighbors and friends and family because we know that's what happens when you go off to barbecues and you have conversations if you want to do something. It's always like, oh, who did you use to get that installation done? We know it's going to be all that word of mouth and peer to peer work that's going to influence people. So that's why we spend so much of our time really just showcasing and profiling people in our community.
Mm. And how important is it for them to be talking about the comfort of our home? Because energy efficiency is also about comfort and well-being, isn't it? It's not just the energy savings and the facts and figures that you mentioned.
Yeah, and that's what people talk about as well. Not to keep on talking about influencer Maria, but she talks about it too. Like she just
Yeah.
talks about how much she hates summer. Like, she just really hates summer. She gets too hot. And now she's got the insulation there. It's so much better and so much more comfortable for her. So it's what people raise all the time. We also did when we did do the, market research with our community, the other thing that does come up unprompted was about the health benefits, especially when it comes to induction cooktops. So
Mm.
we do notice through that research, and we know so when we've done events, it's usually young people with young families who really go, "Oh, yes, I wanna switch to induction cooktop just because of the health benefits and try and get out of the gas within their kitchens and the implications for asthma and other things as well." So it's those are the 2 things that really come up, is the comfort and the health.
And from what you've seen in Marybeck, is it too strong a bow or too big a long a bow to stretch and say that these upgrades are changing people's lives?
Yeah, 100%. Like, so people are really impacted by the heat in summer and also especially here in Melbourne, the cold. So we know that it has such a positive impact in our community. And I think sometimes as well, when you've been involved in sustainability and climate change, especially at the policy level, you can feel of, 2 steps forward, 2 steps back, and feel like we're not making the progress that we really need at the moment for this energy transition. But spending time out in community and just hearing people's stories and being so grateful and feeling like they've been really supported, it actually just, it just gives you that warm heart feeling to know this is what we should be doing and this is what we need to keep on doing. But we need to do it on a larger scale.
Yes, but that larger scale is hard. We've got millions of homes to upgrade, don't we? And your success is obviously based on personal connections, building trust. It's very labour intensive. Is it possible to scale up these grassroots programs? I know we need money, but it also is going to take more than just money, surely.
Yeah, I think I take more than money, but we've seen it in the local government sector already. So, one of the things that we do here in Marybeck, just because we did do this market research about 4 years ago, is then we actually developed a communications guide on, best practice on how to talk about the benefits of electrification. Once again, that guide was developed based on the market research, but also that communications behavior change lens as well. From that, we've developed a community practice for local government, so which involves now over 100 councils from across Australia. We've got about 200 council officers. We meet once a month. We will have like, a guest speaker, and they might be talking about the latest new research in, what consumers are thinking around energy upgrades. We will have like local councils giving examples and case studies of what they've been doing in their area. So we through that community practice, we've also then have an online platform in which everyone shares their resources. So if someone's developed a video on how to use those portable induction cooktops, they're available in libraries. They make a version of it that has no logos on it, so any council can actually use it. So we've actually been like, co-funding the development of all these materials. So you actually now see this consistent messaging on electrification and energy upgrades that uses the same imagery and also the same calls to action, and there'll be the same work that you'll see in like, in Orange in New South Wales, in a council in Perth, across Australia, all these councils use the exact same communications work, but then just localizing what the call to action could actually be. And we did a joint campaign with all these councils a couple of years ago, and we reached over 650,000 Australians.
Wow.
So it's possible by, just sharing all these different resources, and it hasn't cost that much to do.
Mm.
We've actually been able to have this larger impact by just, working together.
So, what do you think is holding back those councils that aren't pushing ahead with some of these sustainability and energy upgrades? What do you think's holding them back? Because clearly, you and your colleagues at Marybeck are right on the money, so to speak, Donna. I mean, you guys have been doing this for some time now. You know what you're doing. You're all on board. You've got a supportive council, but not all councils are on board, are they?
No, and I think it's probably two things that stop some councils. One is just, once again, resources. So we did a survey recently on, what councils are doing on energy upgrades currently and what they like to do in the future. And all up, like the amount of employees working on it at council level is like point 0.3 FTE.
Mm.
So, you know,
Full-time worker, point through the full-time
yeah,
worker. Mm.
yeah, yeah. So it's just a bit more like, there's actually small amount of resources actually even being used at the moment. And that's for the council who can do stuff. We know, especially for a lot of our smaller regional and rural communities, they just don't have the council officer to actually have the time to do this type of work. So that's a little bit by this community practice we developed. All the materials get developed that people, are plain labeled. People can actually just put their logo on, just trying to support some of those smaller councils because they just do not have the time and resources to do it.
Are you seeing a shift, though, in some of those councils that haven't been on board, that they are, now trying to, recognise that they can have a role with the energy transition in this way?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got our first council over in Perth who's just launched their own campaign. They've done all these amazing videos of people in their community who've gone all electric. They've like using the imagery that we developed over the last few years. And, you know, for them, that was actually taking a big first step because they're the first council in WA to actually do it. And councils by nature are quite risk averse. So, just knowing that they actually had access to these materials and the support of this larger group of councils behind them just actually gives them the confidence to actually go ahead and start launching these campaigns in their own community.
Just a final question, Donna. What would you say to people who think that energy upgrades for particularly vulnerable households are just too hard or not worth the investment?
Well, the investment pays off and pays off in spades for us as well. So, we've only so far reached like 285 participants within our program, but, annually they're saving just under $200,000 combined in energy bills. So we know that one is helping them in their hip pocket, but it's also just making sure their homes are more comfortable and healthy for them to actually live in. So we know that actually is that impact. But we actually do need to invest in the people to do this outreach work as well. So we seem to be able to find the money to invest in infrastructure projects, but why don't we just invest in local jobs? And local jobs for people to be that personalized concierge service to reach out, and then we will actually be able to do things at scale. So, there's a pathway there for us to be able to do it, and we just need to invest in those local jobs to actually get it done.
Donna Luckman, thank you so much for joining the Switched On podcast today.
Thanks, Anne.
And Donna Luckman is the Zero Carbon Campaigns lead at Marybeck City Council. And as it happens, the recent winner of the Energy Management Champion Award from the Energy Efficiency Council in recognition of her outstanding work in this sector. And as you heard, Marybeck is employing a dedicated community outreach worker who comes from one of the area's more culturally diverse communities. For the past year, Sarah Hussain has been working directly with households that are often harder to reach, helping them understand their energy options and take practical steps towards electrification. I started my discussion with Sarah by asking her to spell out exactly what she does.
I was appointed in this role as it's part of community outreach pilot, and this was never happening before in council. That
Mm.
the sustainable communities team would hire someone from the community to run this kind of work. So my role revolves around mapping out community groups in Maribec. So this pilot is place based, and by place based I mean I'm focusing on specific communities in specific areas in Maribec, and this is mostly in the north, like Faulkner, Hatfield, Glenroy, mostly. And what I do is I map out community groups that already exist and like meet up in this area, and I reach out to the community group leader or president, and I have a chat with them about how that I want to speak to the group members to raise awareness of Maribec Council's sustainable program subsidies that are available for community members.
Particularly interested in how you first addressed issues of energy efficiency and carbon emissions and electrification, for instance.
So when you speak to community members, especially from migrant backgrounds, we try as much as possible to avoid those terms. So
Right.
they might not know what carbon emission is, but they do know that when you adopt some sustainable practices, like for example, switching to having an induction cooktop at home instead of using the gas cooktop, if you switch to solar to depend on electricity coming from a sustainable source like the sun, that's much better for you, and it's actually also it helps you save on your energy bill. They kind of understand this, but they don't know that it comes under something like carbon emission or something. So we try to tailor the messages according to each groups. We try to avoid the use of jargon. We try to avoid scientific
Yeah.
terms, engineering terms. They don't know that, and they immediately lose interest. And we try to unpack it a little bit and to use as simple English as possible for them, because also most of them actually, even those who own their own houses and they have solar at the rooftops, they do this to save money in the first place, to save on their energy bills, but they don't know how friendly this is to the environment, how that they are like such sustainable practices makes a lot of a difference in terms of carbon emission and all that.
That's interesting. So, do you find that the conversations really vary with the different communities and the different individuals that you actually speak to?
Yes, 100%. So, for example, I've been visiting some of the Italian senior groups. This includes a lot of the senior community members in Faulkner specifically. So, this cohort, for example, is quite different from, when I visit, for example, a group of Muslim women in the same suburb, let's say Faulkner. The amount of knowledge, the amount of the barriers of like language barriers, dialect or accent barriers is totally different here. So with the Italian group, for example, they ask a lot of questions. They could be a little bit familiar with the terms, while, for example, with a group that's mainly consisting of Afghan women, for example, Afghan Muslim women, like the message would be totally different. Like I have to unpack the messages, all the terms, take a really tailored approach, for them to understand. And if they need an interpreter, I could find one to come with me, so that we ensure that there is no language barrier. We always say that there are different segments in community. Like people mostly take multicultural communities as one big category, but the fact is that it's actually there is diversity within diversity within diversity.
Yes.
Even I've been visiting a lot of Indian-based community groups, and like the diversity is huge, and within
Mm.
these groups, like again, when I speak to a Muslim, a Muslim-based community group that consists mainly of Muslim women who are usually quite isolated, and they have a lot of barriers to participate in these programs. It's very different from when I speak to an Indian-based group as well. For example, let's say Hindu-based or Sikh-based, and the messaging is different. The response is different. The amount of knowledge also the two groups have might be different. So this is what this role is about, trying to map out those segments, those community segments, and try to tailor the approach, tailor the communication according to every segment of those community groups. And you can't really go to a household where the house members are refugees, basically, and tell them, hey, how about we install solar panels at your rooftop? It just doesn't work. Like
Right.
they have other priorities, like basic human needs, really. So the best way is to address all the issues and include sustainability with those issues as well.
That is very interesting. So, if sustainability isn't the first thing that you talk about, I'm presuming that things like the comfort of their homes and the health of their families are topics that you do discuss.
Yes, 100%. Exactly.
And all of that can lead you into sustainability and electrification, I would guess.
Yes, it does, because again, like when they don't understand about it, and at the same time they feel they can trust the person who's speaking to them from council, it's okay to ask questions. And like, people come and speak to me about their personal issues. We have this, we have that. Could you help us with this? Could you help us with that? And in the way, in that process, they also ask about sustainability, and they start talking about how that they are quite sustainable also in terms of, for example, ensuring that there is no cross contamination in their bins, which is fantastic. And once they say that, and we let them know that this is amazing, this is great, and they kind of feel like, oh, we've been adopting sustainable practices already, we just don't know that it is. This is quite encouraging for them, and they want to do more. So they start asking about energy transition. They start asking, oh, how much will I save on my energy bill if I install solar, for example, if I insulate my home? Yeah, this kind of engagement is really important in shifting mindsets and habits. You know what I mean? Especially if the
Yeah.
habits are quite cultural, also, which makes it a bit difficult for them to change.
Are there any particular stories or examples that really stand out to you of a household or a resident who went through an energy upgrade and saw a real change?
We have so many stories, and which are all fantastic. Some of the videos actually also are on our website. So some of the Italian ladies who have subscribed for the or registered for the solar, for example, the solar subsidy, they just talk about how fantastic it was, to have that kind of transition. And they're really keen on, just being mindful of when to use electricity, when not to, when to have their air conditioner on, when, like, they start to do this at morning time, and then at night they switch it off and they just enjoy the warmth in the house, like currently in this kind of condition, like weather condition. We also have in one of the latest events that we hosted last week, we had a wonderful woman from the Pakistani community, and she's fully adopted. Like, she has solar at her home. She has insulated her home. She has an EV that she's been using for almost 2 years now. And she just talks about the benefits, how that this is beneficial for her partner, for her children, which also encourages other people in her community. Oh, this is really interesting. We want to learn about that. And then she leads them to us, and they speak to us.
Yes.
They just don't want to see a message on social media about this kind of program. They want to have a conversation.
Yes. Are you specifically working with women?
Mostly, yes. So many of the community groups actually are mostly women, because usually the husband is working during daytime, and this is when the woman joins a community group so that she wouldn't feel isolated. So most of the groups, yes, they are mostly run by women, but with other, it depends also on what community we're working with. With other communities, for example, the groups are quite huge, and it includes like all kinds of genders.
So when you have those really tailored, personalized conversations, what do you see in people in terms of how their behavior changes?
So the first thing is usually we kind of build the relationships with them, being really considerate of their needs and aspirations that could be quite specific. This kind of helps, build the trust between these groups and between council. And this is when we try to find an interest. They start asking questions. They start to inquire about the programs. Some of them ask even to sit with the experts at council and my team to speak more about those programs. It makes a huge difference when a community member trusts the person that comes
Mm.
from council and talks to them about these programs, because usually people in the community, people who come from other countries in the world, especially third world countries, they wouldn't have that kind of trust between them and their local government.
Do you reckon this is the only way to do it? That a lot of the big mass communication programs and generalized information just isn't going to be effective?
Yes, an outreach approach is totally different from the general communication. And this is something that my team has been working on. Like,
Mm.
they have tried before to outsource this kind of engagement, and it just doesn't work. And especially when we're talking about vulnerable community groups, yes, they need to speak to someone they're familiar with, they trust, and building those relationships and trust is very, very important. Having a one-on-one conversation is a huge difference to these people, because just the general comms, yes, it might work with some of those group members, but not with everyone, especially those, who are harder to reach. Like, some communities are quite harder to reach, quite harder to engage with, and they might be missing the messages that are usually shared, through the general communication channels of council, for example.
Just a final question, Sarah. If you could get one message out to the broader public and to policymakers and to the energy industry about what works in this space, what would it be?
I would encourage more engagement. Like, don't assume things. Just go have a chat with community, run some community consultations, ask questions also, and let those answers or response shape your policies and shape your plans. I wouldn't encourage assumptions when it comes specifically to multicultural communities. I would highly suggest and encourage a conversation, a community consultation. See what people want, and plan your project accordingly.
Sarah Hussain, thanks so much for joining the Switched On podcast today.
Thank you so much, Anne. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
And that was Sarah Hussain, community outreach worker at Marybeck Council, doing some incredibly important work to make the energy transition more inclusive, accessible, and, let's face it, human. That's all we have time for on this episode of Switched On. If you like what you hear, please give us a like, a rating, or a thumbs up on your favourite podcast platform. Or get in touch. I'd love to hear from you. You can email me at switchedon@reneweconomy.com.au. I'm Anne Delaney. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you next time.